Thanks for tuning in again. As you can tell, we're starting near the end of this project. We're getting close to the final couple of videos, but the only thing left is the charge air cooler components and the electrical components, and obviously reinstalling the bumper and grill, etc. This episode, we're going to focus on the charge air cooling components only. There's not a lot of modifications that have to take place in this episode. More of the stuff is just being bolted in, put it reassembled. Charge air cooler is going back in its close to original place. There is some modification that has to be made to the piping, and we'll go over that as we get into this section. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this far. Please subscribe, comment, let me know you were here. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. To start this one off, you're going to need the two white bolts that you took out inside the headlight in episode 1. You're going to need this bracket here, one of the battery terminals on it. You can do it two different ways. You can slide it into the headlight or you can drop it in through the hood. This is just going back into where the factory washer bottle used to mount. Get these started. Next, you're going to take the fender bolt. And this one goes in through the bottom of the fender and mounts in just like the washer used to. What I try to do is get all three of them started before tightening any of them up. The next step I like to take is this factory cage here on the battery cables. I cut it off. It's not something the book tells you have to do, but I think it makes it easier to route them, and if there's ever a need to replace them in the future, you can a little bit easier. You can go ahead and connect these up. The book says to do it after you mount the washer bottle. What I found is they do that just so you can access these two holes. But if you want to stick them on loose, like so, go ahead and move your cables in the position where you think they're going to go. And then go back and loom them after you get these bolts in. They're just sitting in place right now. We're going to go to the workbench. I'm going to show you how to sub-assemble the washer bottle bracket. We'll get it installed. We're going to take these couple components here and the washer bottle and mount them up. Now you're going to need the CSE relocation fastener pack, and it's going to have the wire loom in it for your washer bottle pump, your bolts, and 2 electrical connectors. As we stated before, I put Loctite on all these. We're not going to need them all right this second. Some of them will be needed in the chassis. Take this, the end facing you. Put the bracket on. Put your 2 bolts. These are all 13 millimeter for this. You can go ahead and snug these up. Okay. Washer bottle's next. Washer bottle's going to get 3 bolts. Sometimes the bolt's a little big for the plastic. The bracket you just put on is where those will go. One more in the bottom corner here. can see this on the camera. Alright, that piece is sub-assembled, ready to go back in the truck. Now we'll take our washer bottle and install it. Again, you can just throw this out of the way if you need to. We'll set it down in here. It sets on top of this one in the corner. Then you got 2 bolts that go in the factory location. And then you got the 2 that go inside of this bracket. I like to start with these inside ones because they move around a little bit easier. I did put Loctite on all of these bolts. As before, 13 millimeter. Tighten all those up, and then you can take your washer bottle line here that I have pulled out, connect it to the washer pump, and where you pulled out the line, you can actually run this harness down and back behind the headlight again. We'll make that connection here shortly. Once you have the battery cables put in, tightened up, I went ahead and hooked up my washer bottle wires and routed them down to where we can splice them in, and the hose is hooked up. Next, you want to go ahead and install the charge air cooler. It's got a groove in it just like the factory does. It sets in here. What you need to do first though is this first bolt back here in the back. Take the one in the VMAC kit, and it must go in first. If you don't put it in first, you'll never get it in. So you start that one in place. Take you a 13 millimeter ratchet wrench, and then you can go back and put the long bolt in. Now that we have charge air cooler put in place, we're going to go ahead and peel this off the intake. Or excuse me, the cold side of the charge air. Be careful not to leave any tape around. Pull that out. It's clean. If you think there's any trash in it at all, what I do is I take a little bit of acetone, put it on a clean rag, or clean corner of a rag. Just wipe it out. So make sure there's nothing in there. Take your factory connector. We pulled the hose off of it, and I've also cleaned that as well because it gets oil residue on it. And just push it on there. Okay, it's in place. Take the VMAC charge air cooler hose, go ahead and install your factory clamp on there. You'll know which one it is, it's weird looking. Put your other OEM clamp on the top side. Install on the charge air cooler at the bottom. There you go. Once that's connected, go ahead and tighten your clamps up good, because you do not want these blowing off going down the road. And I think those are 7 millimeter for the factory clamp. Once they're put in, just confirm it's not rubbing the pulley, which it's not doing. Then you can start going ahead and hooking up this other hose. this is your coolant line. It just pushes right back on there from the factory. This one you're going to have to modify, so we'll start modifying that one here shortly. We're going to jump over and do the hot side of the system now. The first thing we're going to do is take this piece from VMAC. Both of these parts are from VMAC, and you're going to push this on here 1.5 inches. So you want 1.5 inches from that tube to the outside here. You can see this negative bead here. That's going to go in the factory location where this one used to go. I also put a bead on this one. So we're doing away with the negative bead on this tube, and the reason being is we're actually going to have it installed like this once we're done. First thing is you want to get that bead in that groove. What I found works best for me to prevent these from coming off, take a little bit of acetone, put it on a rag, wipe the inside. Now I know what you're going to say, acetone softens it up a little bit. It does, but you're just putting just a little bit on there to make it sticky. Push it in, and then slowly pull it out until it locks in the bead. Once you feel it lock in place, you're where you need to be. You can go ahead and clamp it down, or you can wait a little bit. Doesn't really matter either way at this point. I like to wait till it's all put together just to make sure it's in there. And again, that's why I don't take it off the engine, because you have to put it right back on. There's not a lot of value in doing it. You'll know when it's in the right spot because it won't move in or out. Alright, from there, put your 2 clamps over it, and then you're going to take the one with a negative bead that you put the bead ring in, and it's going to slide into this tube and then back into the factory tube. Alright, I've actually got to replace one of the band clamps. Had a bad spot in it and I don't trust it, so we'll finish putting the hot side on later. Now we're going to jump into the charger coolant hoses. That took me a minute to get out. And again, it comes in a nice fastener pack from VMAC. Everything you need to do this. It also says in the book that we're going to measure 3 inches off this elbow here. See if you can see it in the screen. Alright, so but it actually says like you're laying flat down, you're going to put a 3-inch mark up. You want, like I said, it's not exact, but you want it as close to that number as you can get. Now, you don't throw that away. You're getting ready to reuse it. Set that to the side. Now, for this side, you're going to cut it off just inside the bend. So kind of where the hose starts to straighten out is kind of what I like to do. Throw that out. And take your factory hose clamp off. Factory hose clamp off this side. Put it on this side. And this will go right here. So the only thing we did was cut it and actually flipped it 180 degrees. Now we're going to take our 90-degree fitting and 2 of our clamps. And that's going to go here. You still see that on the video? That's the first of that. Then you're going to take your piece here, put your hose clamp on. Take your union and your final two hose clamps, put it back on this piece. And you will see why we do that once we start putting the overflow bottle back in. Now what I like to do is go ahead and get this side hooked up. Careful pushing on that. It is aluminum and it can bend. Really need my other pliers for this one. Get it where it needs to go. Sometimes you got to loosen the clamp on this one so it's not pulling as tight, and just let it free spin a little bit, and then it'll sit in there. Now you'll be able to put these clamps on. Make sure that bend is going towards the end side here. See that one? There's a little dip in it, and you're going to take your P-clamp once all is said and done, and it's going to wrap around here, and it's going to fit right there where the original power steering bracket did, or power steering pump reservoir mounted, sorry. Once you got it in there, you can tighten your clamps up and call it a day. I'm going to finish wrapping this up, and this should conclude today's episode. This was just a charge air cooler system. I'm going to clean this up a little bit here. Everything's mounted. I do have to put another clamp on this one. That's why it's still loose. Everything else is tight. Next step, we're going to be jumping into either the electrical or completing the underhood part of this installation. I do have some electrical wires run under here that I'll show you, but once we get those in, we'll be able to put the radiator hose and stuff in. As always, thanks for watching. Please comment, subscribe, let me know if you have any questions.